All right, great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Patty, and I work at Willow Domestic Violence Center, who provides support to people who are in dangerous relationships in Monroe County. We are the licensed provider in this area, so we support all of Monroe County. That includes this college and any areas around here. Some of you might not even be from this area. Maybe you're here just for college, and I want to know that you have access to all that we do while you're here. And before you leave, you will have been told numerous times how to call us on our hotline, and you're welcome to call us from wherever you go to as well. Not every community has a robust program. They have somebody in their community that does this, but they may not have all the services that we offer here in Monroe County. And we want you to know that we're always available to you, regardless of whether you're here or you're back somewhere else as well. But we take phone calls. We have lots of good information around what is in your area, so we can look that up if you're not here. So please know that Willow's here to serve you regardless in this comment and in this area. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about relationships, and more importantly, healthy relationships. I'm not going to talk a lot about domestic violence. I think at the end I can share a little more of what Willow does offer, but I'm here just to basically talk to you about what's a healthy relationship, what's an unhealthy relationship, and what's a dangerous relationship. And how do you know? How do you know the difference between an unhealthy and a dangerous? Because it seems like sometimes we get them all lumped into one, that we call a dangerous relationship just unhealthy, or we think all unhealthy relationships are dangerous, and they're not. They're not all dangerous, they just feel crummy. And when they do, we move on, and we change and get away from those folks. Healthy people get in unhealthy relationships all the time because we start every relationship believing it's going to be healthy. Why would we get in a relationship if we didn't think it was going to be great? So when we enter a relationship, it's always under the pretense that it's a healthy relationship and it's going to be wonderful. And if it turns out that it's not, if it turns out that the other person doesn't really care about us or the same things that we care about, and so it's not really a healthy place for us, as long as it's safe, we move on. You've already had unhealthy relationships in your life. Think back to when you were young. Maybe you had some friends you hung out with, you did things with, you felt connected to, but then they started doing things you don't like, you started doing different things, and you moved on. You moved on from that relationship. So we've got experience moving away from things that don't fit or don't feel right. But I think when it comes to dating relationships especially, people start to think differently about them, but you've really already got these skills. And it isn't necessarily that you're not a healthy person if you find yourself in a relationship that's not a good fit. As a matter of fact, knowing what is healthy and knowing how to determine if you need to move on is actually a really good skill. So that's kind of where I'm going to focus today. The other thing I want to talk to you about is supporting each other. Because when it comes down to it, when you need help and you need support in your relationships, you're not likely to start with me or somebody like me when you look to get help. You talk to each other. You know about each other's relationships, and you help each other kind of navigate that water. So I want you to leave the room with some skills so that you can support each other a little bit. So if somebody you know is in an unhealthy relationship or a dangerous relationship, you'll know what to do. You'll know what resources you have. Before you leave today, on that back counter next to the sink, I also left a few Willow resources about what to do, how to support somebody, and some of our little cards, which are also on your table. These are just basic information on how to reach us. Just a little caveat with these that I find that's really important for people to know is that these are not helpful usually to people in dangerous relationships because being in possession of it's not really safe. So if you're supporting somebody, it's great for you to have one. And you can even take a picture with your phone if you want, or go find our website. Much safer activities. But giving this to somebody because you think they're in a bad relationship might not be a great choice, okay? Got it? All right. So let's talk a little bit about healthy, unhealthy, and dangerous today. I have a handout for you in front of you, and there's two different categories on the front of it. One side says healthy, and the other side says unhealthy. There's a couple of things that I think we have to start with when we talk about relationships, and that is what we hear from people. The number one reason that people don't tell other people when their relationships aren't going well is because they're afraid the other people will judge them. They're afraid that people are going to think, what are you doing? How did you get yourself into that mess? There's almost like a piece of shame that goes along with that. You're in a bad relationship, and how did you let that happen? And so in order to be good support people, we have to do a really good job at trying not to be judgmental about relationships in general for our friends and people we care about. And that includes even judging the relationship as being good. When people share information about their relationships, maybe they post a picture of them with somebody on a social media site, right? We want to comment and support them, but if we say that they're in a perfect relationship, is it going to be easy for them to come and talk to us if it's not really perfect? Probably not. And I will guarantee you that people who are not in healthy relationships are still posting pictures of them smiling with that person or that group of people. They don't stop doing that when things are going wrong. So when you want to be supportive, instead of saying perfect couple, you should get married, maybe you say, looks like you're having fun, really like your outfit, your haircut looks so great. You can still be supportive without describing support for any relationship people are in. Because we honestly don't know how their relationship is. But we're happy to see their face, or we're happy to hear they're having a good time. And that's a really good thing. We also can be negative in our judgments about relationships. And unfortunately, as a society, we spend a lot of time observing relationships. There's a lot of television shows that are based on, let's talk about how people are talking to each other and getting along or not getting along. And so it's really hard for us not to get caught up in the drama of what's going on with everybody all the time. And it's really important that when we do that, though, we make people feel like we're not safe to talk to. We're not safe to come to for support. So if you want to support each other, you got to try really hard not to judge other people's relationships. The second thing I want to give you as advice, if you will, for this is that you don't give people advice about relationships, about what to do next. How many, raise your hand, how many of you have ever gotten bad advice in your life? Yep. Do we go back to that person who gives us bad advice and get more advice? No. And even if it was good advice, but we don't take it, we don't feel comfortable going back and continuing to look for support when we didn't do what they told us to. So we can't really give advice. At Willow, we don't give advice, ever, to anybody who comes for support. We always start with the person and say, what do you need? What do you need to feel safe? What can we do for you? And whatever they say, we go with it. And today, it might be this, and tomorrow, it might be that. I'll give you an example that makes sense for in the college setting. So say today, I come to you and I'm having a hard time in my relationship, and you say, what do you need to feel safe today? And I say, I'm just so tired and I just want a break from all of this. Can I just come over to your place? Can we just relax, watch a movie, eat some popcorn, just get away from it all? And I say, sure. And so you come over, we put our feet up, we watch a really good Hallmark movie, we pop a lot of popcorn. We're in a good place, right? But tomorrow, that person you're in the relationship with that's not going well now knows that they couldn't find you and you were with me. So am I a resource today? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe what worked yesterday is not going to work today. And that's okay. That's not a problem. But it's important for you to realize that it does change all the time. And we just go with whatever folks need. Because really, they're the ones who are the expert on their relationship. And even as an agency that provides support to people who are in dangerous relationships, we never assume that we know what's best for that person or how dangerous that relationship might get. We always defer to the people who are in the relationship. They know, and they tell us, and we follow their lead. So those two things, judgment and advice, you got to try really hard to back off of those, and instead be very open to your friends and the people you support in your life, and let them know that they matter to you and that they can tell you what they need. And you can give them options, and I'll hopefully give you a few ideas of what options look like, but you can always call Willow. And we don't just take phone calls from people in the bad relationship. We take lots of phone calls from people who are supporting somebody else, and they're looking for information about options. So you can always call Willow and say, hey, I know somebody who might benefit from blah, blah, blah. Can you tell me more about that? And we'll do that. We absolutely will. Our hotline's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's always at least 2 people answering the phone, sometimes more. We have both males and females that are regular staff answering the phone. I think a lot of times people don't realize that we serve everybody and that this happens to everybody. It's not one gender or the other that has this problem. So please know that we are there, and there are lots of resources and options under our roof and beyond. Okay? All right, but let's just have that conversation with that handout first about healthy and unhealthy relationships, because I find that everybody can benefit from this. Everybody in the world can benefit from this conversation. So I just need a volunteer who's willing to read for me. I would like someone to read down the side of healthy, that whole column. Then when we brainstorm with people, these are the words we get, and I find it's faster to just have it on a handout. Thank you for volunteering.
Equality.
Keep going, all the way to the bottom.
Understanding, respect, dignity, communication, freedom, your own friends, talk about commitment, make your own decisions, have your own opinion, wear what you want to, happy, fun, agree to disagree, safe, trust, love.
Can you read the bold statement as well?
We all have the personal right to healthy relationships. Anything less than that is not okay.
So one of the things I know, being an educator, is that sometimes when we say things out loud, it helps get it into our brain, and we start to understand it a little bit better. So I would really like us all to read that bold statement together, because I feel like if you get nothing else out of this time we're together, it is that you have a personal right to a healthy relationship, and anything less than healthy, it's not okay. And if nothing else makes sense to you, please leave the room with that thought. So, everybody, are you ready? We're going to read the bold statement. We all have the personal right to healthy relationships. Anything less than that is not okay. Now, when we've brainstormed with people and gotten this list of this is what people think healthy should have, these are the components of healthy. There's a few on here I really want to focus on with you today. If you have something to write with and you want to write on this, that's fine. It's yours, absolutely. There's some extras if you want a clean one to take afterwards. But I would like people to please circle the word love. Circle the talk about commitment statement, and we're going to talk a little more about what commitment is, why commitment is so important and healthy. And then also agree to disagree. And this is kind of where a skill comes in. So I've been married over 35 years to the same person. I've got 5 children. I can absolutely guarantee from my experience, you will not always agree with the person you are with. You can't. You're 2 different people. Sometimes they're going to make you angry. Sometimes you're not going to agree with what they say. Sometimes you're going to be for one thing, they're going to be for the other. And that's okay. That's okay. That's what makes the world go round. We're all different. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. But don't get into relationships believing that you're going to be in sync with this person for the rest of your life, because it doesn't happen that way, right? However, when times come up and you don't just agree with this person, how you respond to that does matter, right? So I always like to take a moment and review, what do we do in a healthy relationship when we don't agree with somebody? When we absolutely do not think that they're right, we might be angry at them for something they've done, and we don't think that that was okay. How do we respond to that in a healthy manner? So the first thing you got to do is you got to take a deep breath. So everybody breathe with me so I know you can breathe. Take a big deep breath and blow it out. And the reason for doing that is not just to give you that moment that it gives you, but also when you're angry and upset, you stop breathing right. You actually breathe very shallow, and you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain. So it gets a few more moments of oxygen up there so that you can think. And if you can have a conversation with that person without calling them a name, without telling them they're stupid, or worse, I want you to step away. I want you to walk away from that relationship and ask for a break. Just say, hey, I need a little while. I need a couple hours. I need the evening. I need the weekend. Whatever you need in order to go back to that conversation and give it the honor that it deserves. For not only the other person, but for you as well. Because here's the funny thing about anger. Anger is not a problem. We don't like anger because we think it's a negative emotion, but it's actually really informative. There's a reason you get angry, and you got to figure that out. You got to figure out, what did that situation do to evoke anger in me? And maybe you don't want that to happen again, so how are you going to make that happen? How are you going to have that conversation? But anger is not a bad thing. It just doesn't feel good, and it's important we get to the bottom of it. Why did I get angry? And please do not apologize for being angry. We often say to people, I'm so sorry I got mad at you. No, don't be sorry. Be able to understand why you felt that way. What was that about for you? And honor that. So that the next time down the road, maybe you won't get there. Maybe you won't have that problem. Maybe those behaviors won't occur. Sound fair? That's healthy. That's a healthy relationship, and that's how you deal with problems, and that's how you deal with anger. All right, let's talk about love. Love's a big deal. Lots of times I have a hard time getting my students, especially in younger grades, like middle school, to talk about love as part of healthy relationships. But it's a big deal. Love is what everybody needs. Somebody loved you. They took you home when you were little, and they took good care of you. They raised you, and they helped you grow up to be the people you are today. Love is something we all need. And honestly, if we don't talk about love and healthy, by the time we get to dangerous and we talk to people about why they're staying with a person and they say to us, but I love them, we tend to judge that, don't we? We tend to think, how can you love this person? And we roll our eyes and we get all upset. But love is a big piece of this. In our relationships, there's a lot of love. And I'm not just talking about dating, I'm talking about friendships. We've definitely got friends out there that we love and that we've got commitments with. And so love is a big deal. Don't discount it as part of this conversation. The next one, talk about commitment. There's a reason why we talk about commitment in a relationship, and then that's also a tipping point. So it's an opportunity for all of you to support each other. When you think somebody's in a commitment of some sort, and I'm talking about they hang out with those people all the time, they eat lunch with them all the time, those commitments count too. It's a good time for you to reach out and ask people, how's that going? That's a really good moment. Now, what are some ways that I know I'm in a commitment? What if my friends are doing what? How do I know they're in some sort of a committed friendship or relationship? What are they doing?
Like if they make plans to hang out with each other, especially like for a specific event, to know that everyone can be there, that everyone can.
Right. So we see them together often, right? Maybe they eat lunch together regularly. They walk together regularly. They attend events together regularly. They might post on their social media lots and lots of pictures of them with those people. So you start to see that they're spending an awful lot of time with somebody. So it seems to be a choice, and it seems to be sort of a thing that they're doing. It's a great time to check in and say, hey, I noticed that you are doing a lot of things with so-and-so or with this group of people. How's that going? And most likely they're going to say, oh, it's fabulous. We did this, we did that. I had so much fun. They're probably going to tell you, at least in the early stages of a relationship, how much fun they're having. And that's okay. That's great. But you've opened that door in case it's not okay. And it's then you can say to them, hey, I'm so glad you're happy, you're having a great time. But if it's not ever not okay, know that you can always talk to me because you matter to me. And now it's there. You may never need it, but it's there. And you're checking in on your friends and loved ones that it matters how their relationships are going to you. And that's an important thing. To know that there's people out there that we could talk to if we need to is absolutely a good thing. Right? Okay, let's talk about unhealthy. Unhealthy is not dangerous. It feels crummy. And there's been some good times. It's not all bad. But there comes a time in an unhealthy relationship where people will question it and say, is this really for me? Can I get a volunteer who's willing to read that column all the way down? Yes, thank you.
Unhealthy relationships, lie, cheat, no communication, no trust, one-sided stuff, support, commitment, arguments, love. Everyone in their own time will question their unhealthy relationship. Everyone in their own time will come to the conclusion that this relationship is just not for me. When you get there, you will have the personal right to break up and move on. Unhealthy relationships happen to healthy people, and you will always have the personal right to have a healthy response and break up. Unhealthy relationships teach us that we are worthy of more, worthy of healthy relationships.
We learn a lot from those unhealthy relationships about ourselves, about what we want, and we also learn a lot about what behaviors are okay. But raise your hand if you've ever known somebody who's in an unhealthy relationship and you can see it and they are still in it and you're watching it happen and you're thinking, oh, no, get out of there. See, the thing is that it's in their time that they will question it, not ours, right? So it's frustrating to watch somebody in a relationship that you think, they really are not getting what they need. Maybe that person is very one-sided and they only want to do what they want to do, only want to go to their family events, only want to have them come and watch them play a sport or perform, but they never seem to care about what the other person wants to do or likes. They're getting a lot of benefits, they're not giving a lot back to it. And so when they get there, when people finally get there in those relationships that we observe and they come to us, here's an opportunity to respond in a way that supports them. Because a lot of times what we'll do is we'll try to help them work it out. We'll ask them to fix it or settle because we think, oh, it's a relationship worth preserving. But I'm going to challenge you to do something different. If they're truly important to you, if they come to you and say they're having problems, I think you should ask them if they're thinking about breaking up. And if they are, you can practice. You can talk about what that's going to look like. You can say, hey, if you're thinking about breaking up, what are you going to say? Where are you going to do it? How's it going to look? And then invite them to come back and talk to you afterwards and tell you how it went. Because if we got good at leaving relationships that weren't good fits, instead of trying to settle or fix them, we'd all be moving towards healthy all the time. And honestly, the people who are being one-sided, maybe they're lying, in that relationship that made it so unhealthy, if people keep moving away from them, maybe they'll think about, well, gee, if I keep acting this way, I don't seem to be able to stay in these relationships that matter to me. My friends don't really want to be with me. So it's an important piece for both sides. So let's break up. How do you break up? What are the proper ways to break up a relationship? Should I write you a note? Send you a letter?
In person.
In person, yes. Lately, I'm hearing about how everybody uses their phone and they text, right? But that doesn't feel good, and they can't see your face. And they can imagine all sorts of reasons and things when they just see those written words. Many years ago, when my parents were young, people would go off to the war. People would write a letter as soon as they left and mail it. They called them Dear John letters, right? And these poor people would show up to fight a war, and they'd get a letter in the mail, hey, let's break up, right? Terrible. So we don't want to write anybody any notes in any way, shape, or medium, right? We would like them to see our face. The least I would say that's appropriate is that you call them and talk to them live on the phone. Like if they're far, far away and you can't stand in front of them, they should hear your voice. It should be something that they don't feel like don't leave a voicemail, talk to them a little bit. But I don't want you to say too much, because you really don't need to. It's probably you've spent some time negotiating with them anyways around some of these behaviors. So if you think you're going to break up, it's really very simple. All I want you to do is stand in front of them and smile. So everybody smile so I know you can smile. Good. Oh, good. This is my favorite part. I get to see smiles. Then all you need to say is, this relationship is just not for me. Now you take care. And release them back into the universe. Now it sounds like that's not going to work. I'm already getting the look over here. That's not going to work. But it really does work. And it's just that simple. If you start going through the list of all the things they didn't do right, it's just going to become an argument. There's going to be defensiveness, and it's really not necessary. It's not for you. You're wishing them well. You don't have a scary, angry face. It should be just, we're moving on. And it is your personal right to be in healthy relationships. You might be tempted to explain to them all the things they did that was a problem, but I'll tell you, they know. They know what they've been doing. And it will become their reality, and they'll figure it out, and maybe they'll grow from this too. So it's not a bad thing. All right, you ready? We're going to practice. All right? Because it's got to come out of your mouth. And it's interesting because just the other day, an adult who I know out in the community told me that she used it on another adult who was a friend, and they have kids in common. And they were having all these back and forths, and she said, I just didn't know what else to do, and I know you say this, so I said it. And she said, it works. And she was surprised too, but it did work. So here we go. You ready? Okay, so we're going to smile, and we're going to say, this relationship is just not for me. Now you take care. We'll do it again. Ready? This relationship is just not for me. Now you take care. That's it. That's it. So now you have two skills, right? You know how to break up, and you know how to ask how it's going when you're supporting each other. And those two things are really, really important and easy. And they don't require you to know any special things about dangerous or even unhealthy relationships. They're just about being supportive to each other, right? So that's good. That's good. All right. On the other side of the paper is a list of behaviors. And these behaviors are dangerous. These are not part of an unhealthy relationship. This is a dangerous relationship. These are not safe. And when this happens, we don't say people break up. Usually they can't easily. We say they actually escape these relationships. So most of these here occur in abusive relationships, but I will tell you that often we don't recognize some of them until there's physical. We don't say, oh, that's abuse. So I want to at least review some of these behaviors. All I need is a person to just read the definition underneath the heading. So that first sentence right under the heading. Oh, you're going to read again. Thank you.
Relationship abuse is a pattern of behavior that is aimed at gaining and maintaining control of a partner.
So there's some highlighting words in there. First of all, it's a pattern. So you can underline pattern. It doesn't happen once. If somebody calls you a name, you're not being abused. If they're calling you a name, it's not nice, but one time doesn't make it abusive, okay? It's a pattern. Once it starts, the more it happens and the worse it gets. But it grows in intensity. The other thing to look for is that maintaining control of another person. If you're looking at a relationship and you start thinking that these behaviors seem to be about control, then that's a red flag that it could be abuse. One of the things I want you to leave here today understanding is it does not have to be physical to be very abusive. So, it usually starts with verbal abuse, things like name calling, belittling somebody, telling them they're less than, and it follows into emotional abuse. And there's a bulleted list of emotional abuses, but one I really want to highlight is the last bullet, and that is threatening to hurt themselves or someone else. This I've heard more about in the recent years, and I think it's becoming kind of an issue, and it's difficult for people when this happens. But as people who might support somebody who will say to us, they've threatened to hurt themselves, they've threatened to hurt somebody else, unless I support them, let me tell you that it may seem ridiculous to you that that would even happen. You might think they're never going to do that. But the reality is that people in abusive relationships, smaller threats have been made along the way and they follow through. So anything they threaten to do, the person in the relationship believes that it absolutely might happen. And so they take these threats very seriously. If somebody's threatening to hurt themselves, get help, right? That's what we do. And if you're trying to carry that, that's too much. Get help, because that's what people need. They need support, they need help. Don't try to carry this. But this has been more often bubbling up. And what you need to realize is that if people are saying this to somebody, that's abusive. They should say, help me get help. Not, you can't break up with me or else I'll do this. Do you see the difference? All right. The next one I want to talk to you about is way at the bottom, economic abuse. And students are primarily who I talk to, and they say, oh, we don't have to worry, Mrs. Northrup, about that, because we don't share a bank account with these people. We don't have a financial piece where we have to share finances, but I will tell you what it looks like for you. What's your job every day? What do you do every day? You go to school, right? Your job is to come here and be your best self and be ready to learn. So if somebody is taking your time and making you less of a student so that you're not trying to do the best that you can, they keep you up at night, texting you in the middle of the night and expect you to answer. They ask you to help them with their assignments and study for their exams, and you don't do your work, and you show up and you're not prepared or you're not awake enough to be the best student that you can be. That's abuse. That's economic abuse for students. And it's not that you can't recover from a bad semester, but it costs money. And ultimately, when you leave here, what you're doing here is hopefully going to propel you into some sort of an economic situation. So really, anything that takes away from your student abilities is a form of abuse. Remember to honor why you're here in the first place. You're here to learn and to be the best student you can be while you're here. The next one usually is sexual abuse, and in here I really like to highlight the bullet about making unwanted comments about your body. See, here's the thing, people. when you started this relationship, you were you, and you were fantastic. They liked you the way you are. But now all of a sudden you're too tall, too short, too fat, too thin. What happened? Nothing happened to you. You're fine. You're fine. It's a form of control. If somebody starts commenting on that, that's abusive. That's nothing to do with you. You look just right the way you are. And remind yourself, and they liked you the way you are. They chose to be your friend or in a relationship with you. The last thing we see is physical abuse. It doesn't start with physical abuse. It usually ends there. So by the time it's gotten physical, if you're aware of a relationship where physical things are happening, know that many of those other things have already been occurring for those people. It's just a little easier for us to recognize physical abuse as being abusive. But we do know people who never have a physical problem with somebody, but they can't leave those relationships because of all the other types of abuse and all the other types of things that have been going on either emotionally with that person, economically with that person, or physically or verbally with that person. So when your friends want to move away and you want to support them from a relationship that has become dangerous because there is abuse involved, you might need some support. And as I said earlier, they really are the expert. The people in the relationship know what they need. So, options. Let me tell you a little bit about what we have here in Monroe County as far as options go, just so that it can be something that's in your mind, but don't feel that you need to memorize or know any of this, because we're always available and the hotline's always there, and somebody will talk you through whatever the situation is. Every situation is different. So it's important that you recognize the fact that what might work for one person definitely could be a problem for another. In Monroe County, we actually operate a shelter where 49 people live with us every single day, and there's a waiting list. We never have an empty bed. About half of the people who live at the shelter are children that come with an adult. And they all have their own little separate, almost like efficiency rooms. So they join a big community, but they also have what they need resource-wise. Students from your social work program here do their internships at shelter as part of what they do. So it's in a secure location that no one knows where it is. It's in Rochester, and the people who come to live with us are safe. Not everybody needs to come to shelter. Some people have different resources and they can go somewhere else in order to escape their relationship, but that's available. People stay with us usually around 3 weeks, but it could be longer, it could be shorter. It really is about what they need. And it's not a bad place. It's a happy place. There's lots of fun. There's laughter in the halls. There's kids running around. People go to school. People go to work. Good things happen in shelter. It's not a scary, bad thing at all. We also have a counseling program. So we provide counseling, not therapy, but just counseling, short-term, things that people might need in order to be able to move forward. They might join a group to talk about what is safety planning. How do I do that? Maybe join with different people. Their children can come with them. There's playrooms available for those things. There's people from the community we partner with in order to provide services like that. If somebody wants to go into therapy for a long haul, we refer them out, right? We're there to help them get through and have resources and skills. We have people at court. In Monroe County, there's actually a domestic violence court, and you can go to that court specifically. It's part of family court. It used to be blended in with family court, but now there's an actual court that's just for domestic violence. And there are folks there from Willow that have a secure part of the courthouse so that someone can sit without having to sit in the main hallway on a bench with somebody they don't want to sit with. The advocates are really great. They can answer a lot of questions. They can go into the court and listen alongside and then help you kind of figure out what exactly just happened, what did the judge say I have to do, you know, those kinds of things. Answer questions, make referrals, legal aid's right back there too. So there's all sorts of resources in the court. Our court staff is there every day that court is open. And people come in the morning and leave in the afternoon with successfully seeing somebody. So, and moving forward on that. So that's actually a really good resource. Another thing we discovered was that sometimes people needed to see the judge, but they maybe they were in the hospital because they were injured, because the relationship that they were in was dangerous and they got hurt, and now they're in the hospital and they really don't want to have to go home and recover and then try to get to court. So we created this piece called Heal, and it's at the hospital, and we can go to the bedside in the hospital if somebody's been referred to us, and we can actually Skype with a judge there. So they don't have to go home, get better, and then try to get to court. So that was a good thing. Another barrier we discovered for our folks was that people don't want to leave their pets behind. And so we're one of the few shelters in the nation that has a pet program. You can take your pet with you if you need to, bring it to shelter. We partner with Lollipop Farm. We have resources. We have a wonderful piece within the shelter where we have the resources so that if somebody's pet has to come with them, it does. So that doesn't keep people from not going, you know, because they're worried about their animal and they're worried about what will happen if they're not there to take care of their animal. So that's a really good thing too. Yeah.
That's huge, actually.
It is huge. It was a barrier.
Sure,
Yeah.
people think that you know, their animals will get hurt by the other person.
Right. And so they choose to stay,
Right.
even though they don't want to. Yeah. Yeah. So there's lots and lots and lots of things that we can do to support people. Orders of protection are not just for people who are in relationships where they are married and they have common households and they have shared incomes or children in common. You can obtain legal support for people that you're dating, people who are bothering you at school. So there's all sorts of resources out there. The best advice, as a person who doesn't give advice, that I can give you is to make sure that you just call the hotline, tell them what you're looking at, and ask them if they have any information for you. Because they are a great resource. And so you don't have to carry this information either, because options will change, situations will change. So it's important for you to realize that they're out there, and you can call and ask questions and find out what resources there are and how to access them. You can share that information. One of the most helpful ways you could support somebody if they're asking a whole bunch of questions and they want to make a phone call is offer them your phone. Say, here's my phone, here's my office, go sit in my office and use my phone. Because sometimes they can't use their own phone to call us, or they're not comfortable using their phone. So give them your phone and let them use that and call and ask some questions. Now I'm here, so I would be thrilled if people would ask a few questions before we finish up today. Yes?
Based on your experience with the shelter, how long does it typically take in a relationship to see the warning signs of it?
Everybody's different. Everybody's different, and so many things play into relationships. Just think about all the different value systems that people have and different cultural things. So really everybody's different. But it is important for you to recognize behaviors. And that's why I gave you the list of behaviors, because a behavior is a behavior. And these behaviors are abusive. And so if there's a pattern of any of this, it's abuse. They may not recognize it right away. But if you all can start to realize that the behavior is what defines it and the control is what the goal is, it makes it a little bit easier for you to know when it's a dangerous situation. Question?
So like in the scenario where like the situation is dangerous, and if the person doesn't see it but you do, how would you deal with that without like, you know?
How's it going? How's it going? And you can ask about how it's going in a lot of different things, right? How's it going at school? How's it going in that relationship you're having with so-and-so? Continuing to be open and letting them maybe come to you when they feel comfortable is a really good way to support somebody. Because until they're ready, they're not going to change what they're doing, right? And we have this frustration all the time too. Don't get me wrong. People will come to us and we'll support them, and then they'll go back. And then they'll come back around again, and we let them right back in the door and say, hello, how are you? What do you need? Right? Because it's not that simple. So be open and check in with each other. Ask each other regularly, how's it going? What's going on with you? Yes?
Why is it difficult when someone does maybe make the step to Willow,
Mm-hmm.
their shelter or council, to go back? Why is that hard to understand that now they're saved? Why would they put themselves in unsafe?
Reasons why people don't leave a relationship, there's a whole host of them people give us. But that one about love is an important one too. I think that's one of the ones that's really difficult. They might have common needs, they might have children in common, they might have a household in common, or they might just really not understand that if the other person didn't, won't change, couldn't change, wouldn't change. I don't know. It's just really tricky stuff. It can be frustrating, but I think the important thing to understand is it's not really for us to decide either. It's really for them to decide. And so when people go back and we think it might not be safe, the first thing we want to do is talk to them about how they can stay safe, right? So that's some of the counseling we might offer, is that safety piece. Okay, you're going to choose to stay here. How are you going to stay safe? What are some things you can do? So there's pieces there as well. It's kind of hard to start over. It's kind of hard to tell somebody you just have to leave that person, and maybe they don't have the resources to start over, right? It's a lot. So you can't really assume that they're going to be okay starting over. It might actually be a big lift for them to go. Any other questions? I think we've met our time. I am going to hang around out in the hall if anybody wants to chat, because I know there's a class here in just a few moments. I really appreciate that you took time and stopped in. Do the evaluation so that we can tell if this is on mark, on point, or if you would like something different.